Hi, Lavinia.
Hi, Conrado. Hi. Okay, I can hear myself, so everyone can hear me too.
How are you? I just spoke in Portuguese. How amazing you are, how crazy about learning you are, and how untrustful you are about the traditional way of providing learning and development. So thank you a lot also, Dinye. I think it's going to be an amazing talk. We are in the downtown São Paulo, in an old era, in an old street, in a building from the 1920s, and eager to listen to all your thoughts and all your provocation for how to implement real learning and development in this crazy world. So the stage is yours. Thank you a lot for being with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me again, because I think this is my third year with the festival. So I guess I did something right the first 2 years for you to invite me again.
In Brazil, you can choose your music when you come for the third time in the same place. So you just email us, WhatsApp me a song that you like, and we can include your music in our playlist.
So
okay?
Cool. I had no idea. You should have told me. I should have sent you something, but no worries. Thank you so much for having me again. It's really nice to be here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lavinia. I have been in L&D for the last 12 years. I've seen NGOs, I've seen the higher ed, I've seen the corporate world and startups. And just like Conrado said, I'm very passionate about learning, but I think there's so much innovation, or at least improvements in some areas that can happen in L&D. And right now, what I do is that I am a co-founder and a learning architect at Offbeat. And at Offbeat, we support L&D professionals in learning and growing, mostly in Europe and in the US. And we've been in touch with Novi for years now, and we love the work that they do with you. So it's really nice to be here. Now, I want to share something. Let's see if this will work. On the screen, in a couple of seconds, you are gonna see a QR code, and you can also find it in the chat. We tried making this session just a bit interactive, so that we can hear from you as well, because I think and we think in general that there's so much knowledge in the room already. We just need spaces like this one to share that knowledge. So start connecting with the QR code, because we have some questions prepared for you. And let's test this out. I'm gonna move from the QR code. You can still find the link in the chat, just so you know, okay? So the first question that we have for you is, what area in L&D do you wish someone would solve in a new way? Because there are so many different things that we do in L&D, right? There are so many areas where we can innovate, but what is it that is painful for you at the moment, or where do you think we can do better or way better? Okay, so I will leave this question on the screen because I keep saying we, and you'll see two other faces on the screen here. And I'm very happy that for the first time, I don't come here alone. I actually brought some friends with me, and I want you to meet them as well. So Dinye, do you want to kick things off and share a bit about you?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Lavinia. So unlike Lavinia, this is my first time in this event, but I've seen it moving around on LinkedIn. Every time it happens, my LinkedIn feed is always filled with like people talking about this. So I feel like I am finally quenching my FOMO of like people posting. I'm here now. And so my name is Dinye. I am the founder of House of Imu. In the last 7 years, I've been working in L&D. I started in corporate, and then I got impatient and I got annoyed with the rigid structure that didn't allow me to innovate. So I switched, and that's where I've been thriving. So in the messy world of scale up and startups, I've been supporting different startups to create innovative learning programs. And that's what I still do right now. I'm also supporting other companies, even the corporate most boring ones, because I feel like sometimes innovation happen when you meet constraint. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm originally from Indonesia. I was in Brazil for 5 weeks in 2019, and I just feel like home. Like the climate, the vegetation, everything is kind of the same, just different language. But even the people are the same, like smiley, happy ones. So excited to be here today.
Thank you, Dinny. And now to the other side of the world, Danny, can you introduce yourself as well?
Yes, thank you. So, hello all. So, my name is Dinye. This is the first time I've been here. So, very similar to Dinny, I'm having that first quenched. Currently, I'm based in Dubai, working for a major bank out here. Before that, I worked for the world's top innovation company, where I helped shape bold ideas into reality. I guess along the way, I wrote a book called Insightful Innovator, which helps L&D, HR, employee experience teams bring innovation into their world in a way that's practical, human, and actually works. And I guess before that, I had around about 15 years of L&D experience. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Thank you, Danny. So you're gonna hear from them in a second. I see lots of things here, so many replies. I see leadership development, I see engagement, I see workshop delivery, lifelong learning, I see practice, virtual training, online dynamics, energy, freedom to choose. So many things that you would like to innovate in L&D. What we're going to do is that we're going to share with you first a model. It's kind of a lens through which we look at innovation in L&D. And then each of us has so many stories to share, but we pick some of them. And we're going to share some real case studies. And some of them are actually about some of the things that you've mentioned here in the Miro board, in the Mentimeter. Sorry, I use Miro as well, too much. So let's kick things off with the framework. And Dinye, I want to invite you so that you can explain a bit how this framework works.
Yes. So I didn't create this framework. It's based on a book called The Runaway Species by Anthony Brand and David Eagleman, where they say that there are 3 basic strategies where human beings usually create creative ideas. And because I love metrics, I just put another one into that. So then we have a full matrix. In any case, what does each of the metrics mean? So bend is when you create a creative ideas just by bending something that already exists. A simple example here is you have candy in different flavors. So it's the product itself didn't change, you just changed the variation of it. And then there is blend. So this is where you take different aspects of different product and then put it into one. A simple example of this is Post-its. So it's literally just paper and glue, and then they create Post-its. A very simple, but it's a very popular and successful product. Another one is break. So this is where maybe the thing that you want to innovate is too complex, and you break it down into its smaller parts, and then you innovate on the smaller parts, not the big part. An example here is our DNA. So, like any DNA modification didn't actually modify the entire DNA, because then we'll be a totally different species, but it just modify a little bit of it so that we improve some of the part. Usually you do it for plants. Borrow is when you innovate by applying something new in another discipline, or something from the other discipline to your own discipline. So an example here is Teflon. This non-stick pan that we have in our kitchen. This material was actually used in the aerospace industry to coat the plane, so it becomes frictionless and it's weatherproof, etc. And then they said, why don't we borrow it and put it in our pans so that it's easier for them, for us to clean it. So these are, I guess this is how we are going to talk. Like, this is how we want to frame our conversation today, by talking about okay, what are the examples? And I personally feel like if you are stuck and you feel like you're not innovative, you just look at this and it's like, okay, can I bend, blend, break, or borrow something to innovate? So yeah, that's the frame.
I think most of the L&Ds that I talked to also mentioned that innovation sounds like something so big. You need to change the world, or you need to disrupt an industry, or you need to come up with a completely new product. Where actually innovation can also happen in increments. And I guess that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're also, just so you know, everyone, we're also here in the chat online. So if you have any thoughts, you can share them here, and I'll be more than happy to bring them up as well. Now, let's take this framework and turn it into something more concrete. To Dinye, can you walk us through a real case study for one of these 4 categories?
Yes, I'll take the first one because that's the easiest one. I think we all know mentoring. If you work in L&D, we have done or participate or organize mentoring for the organization. And it was actually my first experience at work. I wasn't even in L&D, but I was part of a program called reverse mentoring. So instead of us, like the youngsters, the future talent of the organization, getting mentored by senior executives, it was the other way around, because it was a bank, it was very conservative, it needed some fresh ideas. And they were like, okay, what is the fastest way for our senior leadership to get innovative thinking, to get like fresh ideas from the future talent of this company? So then we created a reverse mentoring program. And until today, I'm actually still do reverse mentoring time to time. It's like a 6 months program where then I get matched with a very senior leader in the organization. And it can range from like just talking about like future topics, sustainability, diversity, and all of this topic that's for the youngsters are like, yeah, duh, like, what, you don't know this? How come? But for the senior leadership who came from a totally different generation, background, it's very new, and it helps them to understand employees and customers' needs. So that's an example of like a very simple, we're just flipping the script, the dynamic of the situation, but it created a totally different learning experience for not only the 2 people who are involved in that relationship, but also for the whole organization.
And before I pass it to Dinye, now that I hear you talk about it, it also reminds me of another company called GitLab, and they have an amazing job shadowing program, but people shadow only one person, and that's the CEO. So different people can apply, and they can, depending on what they want to accomplish, why they would like to shadow the CEO, they get a couple of days where they go everywhere with him, and they get this exposure and transparency to the company that we rarely hear of in some parts of the world. So that's another bending example, I guess. Now, Dinye, over to you, because I think you have another example from another area.
Yeah. So I guess I was working with a major financial service organization, and they noticed a worrying trend. Leaders wasn't advocating for their teams or themselves. Like, no one was asking for promotions, pay rises, or pushing like growth conversations when it came to performance review. And the assumption of the organization was, well, these people have no ambition, which didn't feel right. So after doing some kind of upfront discovery and sense making, the truth emerged. It wasn't a lack of ambition, it was discomfort. So leaders didn't know how to kind of manage these emotions, especially when these conversations are really emotionally charged. And when the stakes got high, so did the fear, so did the sweaty palms, the kind of fast talking when they're nervous, and ultimately became a bit kind of startled. Now, the classic route would have been to do a workshop on how to have a difficult conversation and job done. But I decided to kind of bend and somewhat build on this and kind of turn it into an immersive experience. So for them who don't know, I am hugely immersed in immersive experience design. Like, it's took me 5 years. I've wrote my own model for it. So I kind of leaned onto this experience. I've worked with a production company in the UK called Punch Drunk. Definitely check them out. They're really cool. So I partnered with a production team to design a live scenario with full actors. And one by one, each leader went through this stage scenario. Now, the scenario was they didn't know what was happening, and we walked them up to a bridge. And then they had to talk a person down, threatening to jump off this bridge. That was all they had to do. But they weren't ready for this. We just threw them into this experience. Now, whether they successfully or kind of talked them down or didn't, wasn't really the result. It didn't really matter. But what we did next is as soon as they exited that experience, we recorded their raw, unfiltered reflections and emotions and what they felt and how their body kind of reacted. And what we noticed was some real common themes. The heart was racing, their words got jumbled, there was no structure in their thinking, and actually it was just emotional overload. So what we did is we turned these recordings and turned them into personalized toolkits. And we just kind of played them back. Here's how you react under pressure. Here's what you can do next time. And only then, once these kind of emotions have been felt and named, did we introduce some simple negotiation frameworks, some tactical kind of personalized plays what they could run. So we didn't forget about this leadership training. We just bent it and built on it. And we built it from like a theory into emotional reality. We bent the format from what would be a normal classroom into kind of this immersive rehearsal. And we bent the goal ultimately and built on the goal from a learner model to how do you respond when it matters. So this wasn't about getting it perfect. It was about building on this emotional memory, if you like. Now, the outcome was obviously 8 months later. Some of these leaders were leading tough conversations with clarity and very calm. And they didn't need to recall a framework because they remembered the experience. They could reflect on that experience and kind of get used to what it felt like. And the results were awesome. We got braver leaders who were pushing for promotion. And actually, one thing which was a byproduct of this was these leaders turned into kind of difficult conversation coaches, because what they started to do is push down on their teams to kind of start saying, hey, if you're not pushing me for promotion, then we're doing something wrong. So is this kind of 360 organization uplift? So the toolkit is still being used now. It's still being applied. So yeah, that was a really immersive, very build, very bend kind of different scenario. But how about you, Lavinia? How have you got a case study to share?
Yeah, I have something from the blend category. I just wanted to say that in your use case, I really like how you started with the emotion that people felt and not the knowledge that they needed. So that's one way to look at things. For my use case, it's a blend use case, and we blended two different, very separate HR products, which was recruitment and learning. Our purpose was to prepare the next leadership generation of the company. And what we traditionally did was to ask managers, senior leaders, for recommendations, right? Looking at in their teams and saying, hey, this person needs to be prepared because they have a lot of potential and performance as well. And the idea came from our CEO back then. And what he said was, okay, what if we would open the floor up to everyone in the company to be able to join our talent program? So what we did was that we took the recruitment process from the traditional recruitment that we did like with our external candidates, and we brought it inside. We prepared this recruitment process for our colleagues, and anyone could apply to join our talent development program. We had people from customer service representatives to finance to marketing to engineers to team leaders. So anyone in the company could apply. And then another thing that we did was that we didn't want just to send them to trainings. We wanted them to feel like what it means to be a leader in this organization. So we took real case studies from the company, We paired participants into groups. We gave them 2 months, and we said, okay, you need to solve this case study. This is a problem that the business is facing, and you need to solve it. So people from very, very different teams were suddenly faced with working together. They had never worked with each other, and they had to solve this because at the end, they were presenting their case studies in front of senior leaders, our CEO, our CFO, our CTO, and they would get feedback. And some of the teams even had a chance to work on the projects that they prepared in the future if the projects were successful and they got good feedback. So this was a way for us to look at 2 very different, separate parts of HR. And we actually, now that I reflect out loud, I realized that we brought another part of HR, which was internal comms and employer branding, into the mix to make it as creative and as crazy as possible in terms of communication, so that it does feel like something you want to be a part of. And the whole organization knew about it. Everybody was talking about, oh my God, where are you in the recruitment process? What was your feedback? And so on. So it was the program, instead of us like pushing things towards people, they just came to us because they were so curious about the whole process. So this is another case study that I have as an example. But now that you heard a couple of examples from us, and that you heard about this model and these 4 ways of kickstarting your creative process, basically, we were curious to hear from you. What is the most common way, most often type of innovation that you're seeing in L&D? Either because you felt it yourself, you heard from others, you've seen it in your company. Anything is okay. Let's see. Replies are already coming in. We have bend, we have borrow, we have break. Okay. Great. We have a lot of blend. I have to admit, I was not expecting it, but we have a lot of blend indeed. Now, I'm curious. We're gonna come back to case studies. If you have like any other thoughts, feel free to write them in the chat. Now, Dinye, I want to come back to you, and hear any other examples that you can bring to the table.
Sure. So another one that was an example of borrow, I would say. So I don't know how familiar people are with working out loud, but it's basically a social learning setup where you meet regularly with a group of people for 12 weeks and then discuss about your personal branding or your growth and development, stuff like that. So the context was, it was a scale up. So as like any scale ups, the focus is to grow and to make money. They don't care about any L&D terms or anything that I'm saying. At that point, the L&D team has already created a lot of materials for the organizations, but the engagement is very low. And one of our assumptions is because the employees didn't really know how to integrate learning into their daily business. So the key term for us was like the L&D people, oh, we need to increase their self-directed learning skill. When we pitched that to the senior leadership, they were like, I have no idea what self-directed learning, whatever thing you are trying to do, but can you just make sure that our revenue grow by this %? And that's all they care about. So we're like, okay, and then I was like, this working out loud thing, and they want it to be like something that's not training, that's not workshop, because they don't want their salespeople to go into any time that is not working or calling the clients. So we set it up like working out loud, where we ask the employees to, or like we force them we assign them to different groups, and they need to stick with them for 6 weeks. And at the beginning, they have to set a goal of like performance goals. So let's say, oh, I need to close 2 million euro of transaction this quarter. And then your work or like the task that you have to do is to plan experiments that you would do in the next 6 weeks to hit that 2 million euros. And it can be whatever. It can be, oh, I'm not going to text any of my client. I'm just going to come to their place directly and haunt them. Or I'm like the craziest ones you can think of, because the key of it is to experiment, to try out different things. That is learning, right? And the senior leadership was happy. It was like, oh, okay, so you're just asking them to work differently. Yes, we're not asking them to learn or self-direct or whatever. But we provided them with a lot of tools as learning function. We provided like a reflection book. We provided a like a dashboard to track their experiments. We created like prompt how to discuss this experiment with your manager, with your peers. So they are guided in a way, but they didn't feel like learning like the way they do it. And at the end, they have to present it in front of the senior leadership, like, okay, what experiments did you do? What did you learn? What did you achieve? And for us as an L&D team, you know, L&D is always being asked, can you demonstrate your impact? What exactly is the business result that you have given to us? In this case, we didn't have to do that because it was the people who presented it. They were like, well, you know, I set it up having 2 million euros that I have to hit. It did, and then I tried this different thing. And then, well, it turns out I did hit 1.5 million euros. So we were like, well, it's not like we want to claim anything, but if that's not, if isn't because of the experiment that we forced them to do, he probably wouldn't hit that 1.5 million euro. And ta-da, that was the impact of L&D. And that was like, I remember when I was pitching it to my boss, I was like, do you know working out loud? I'll just copy it and then do it in our setup. And she was just like, I don't know, just you do you. And that was very helpful. That was one of our most successful program because it just put L&D as a true partner of the business and actually deliver a business impact.
I want to build on what you said and just very quickly share with everyone this book called Tiny Experiments, because it defines very, very well how you can use experimentation as a learner, and for us, of course, in learning design. And the gist of it is that you need to set an action that you're going to do either for a certain duration or for a number of trials. And this is what Dinye did exactly. And it's borrowed from how scientists work, because how scientists do things is that they have an assumption. They say, hey, this might be true. And they just test it out in a certain number of trials set right from the start. And this can be used to, you know, discover what you like as a person, your career track, your favorite tasks, and so on. So yeah, there's a lot of use for experimentation in learning. And because I know we don't have much time left, Danny, I think you have a story that blends all of these things together. So I'll hand it over to you.
Perfect, thank you. So I guess, yeah, mine this one kind of goes through all four stages. I was working with a large telecoms company, so they brought me in to work with a 30-person kind of learning development employee experience team. It was really good humans, strong values, but their ways of working was kind of stuck in a loop. And the reality is when you can't be, they were still operating like a traditional internal training team. They was really reactive to the business requests. They were churning out content. And you could see it a mile off, low engagement, little kind of strategic kind of traction. So they'd heard all the buzzwords, right? Product mindset, experience design, design thinking, but they just weren't living it. They wanted to kind of move. So they wanted to move from like this traditional L&D EX team to a more product-centric and like experience-led function, but they had no idea to kind of how to roadmap it. But it was really clear this wasn't going to be a course. They wanted to kind of flip the entire operating model and be something braver, be something what lasted the test of time. So I worked with them and we created around about 12 to 15 week experience incubator. So not a course, not a boot camp. It was more like a catalyst more than anything. And we didn't label it the 4B we didn't label it 4Bs at the time, but you know, looking back, we did go through all 4 of them. So week by week, the team involved. So it was kind of 4 stages. So the first stage was reveal and reframe. And this was kind of holding a mirror up to the team. So I ran some kind of team accounting, capability mapping, and maturity diagnostics. And interviewed everyone within the team to kind of surface blockers and visualize what was really going on and ask them what they was really holding on to. And it was quite clear. They were still saying to the organization, we deliver training. So what we needed to say was we create experiences that shift behavior and drive outcome. So instantly there was just a jar in the kind of language. So first thing was to kind of take them from kind of TNA or learning needs analysis and turn it into discovery and sense making, and kind of taking learning content and turn it into from learning content to prototypes. So we was using all kinds of design tools and reframing their day to day. So for me, when I think about this first stage, this was definitely like a break because we cracked open the L&D identity, we pulled it apart, we named the patterns, and then we let go of all this legacy logic. And then we bent it. We reframed kind of familiar tools from like, you know, from learning needs analysis to kind of discovery. So that was the first thing. So we kind of using that, we created this united kind of vision. It was a clear kind of capability bench line as well, what we got. And the team was ready to kind of step into this new identity. And that's kind of where we went on to the second stage, which was more like bend and borrow on reflection. So here we looked at mindsets and methods. So in this sprint, we ran kind of the 2 key mindsets, what are needed for innovation, a dreamer mindset and a distiller mindset, or expansive and reductive, whatever you want to call it. And then we named some behaviors. So obviously you've got your traditional behaviors, but we wanted something a bit more different, more innovative. And actually, when you look at any great innovative organization, you'll see values like bravery, momentum, playfulness, curiosity. So we looked at actually how do we bring them in our day to day and how do we show up? And we also created a pattern language. So we looked heavily at the likes of Ritz-Carlton, who have their own language, and looked at actually how we talk and how we show up really, really matters. And based on all that, we kind of created a people product manifesto, a declaration, if you like, of who we are and who we're going to become. So we didn't just go from traditional tools, we kind of shifted the complete energy, I guess. And we borrowed rituals and practices from what L&D really don't look at. Agile startups, we looked at the military, we looked at nurses, theatre and live performers. And then we looked at design disciplines like service design, system thinking, experience design, and venture building and innovation labs. So I guess for me, when I look at this stage, this was definitely a bend. This was definitely more around, we moved from a traditional e-learning developer and HR responders and employee engagement to creators, experimenters, product thinkers, experience designers. And then we injected a new thinking kind of beyond the echo chambers of what was already there. Unlocking this language was a massive, massive mover. Then we went on to the third stage, which was, again, probably break and bend. And we ran kind of rapid sprints, each one focused on a real problem, mapped to things like journeys or prototyping or specific skills from service design. We brought in kind of team tooling. So here we looked at empathy mapping, jobs to be done, experimentation. Because experimentation beats pilots every day. If I could just give you one tip, it's that. I brought in kind of punch drunk and showing actually how to design really macro, meso, and micro experiences. And then workshops were actually turning into experiences, immersive experiences. And we use system thinking to zoom out, to reframe the system, and then zoom in to prototype these moments that really matter. So from that kind of, we looked at it and we broke it down. We deconstructed the legacy learning journey down to intention, friction, emotion, and unmet needs. And then we kind of blended in the service design and experience design. And then the final one, I guess the final stage is we kind of products and embedding it really. This was borrow, blend and bend. Because we introduced MVPs, by proposition campuses, innovation accounting, business modeling. And this shifted them kind of from pilots to fast experimentation. We moved from post-course surveys to real-time feedback loops. We created a living team playbook, which was rituals and tooling and language so that anyone could always go in there. But actually, if any new teams come in, they could then instantly upskill themselves really quickly. So, I mean, when I look at this kind of outcome on this, you know, we broke and we bent and we blended and we borrowed. And that kind of shift from traditional HR employee experience in L&D teams to this product-led experience first was a massive shift. And it's funny, even today, when I go in and I check in with people, like that playbook's still living. They still talk about people products from sunrise to sunset. So you've got this whole product life cycle. So, you know, that one went through all 4 stages. And it's only when we got talking about this framework, I was like, oh, wow, it was something that I didn't really realize. So yeah, I owe that one to Dinye for sure.
Awesome, Danny. Thank you so much. And because I know we don't have much time left, and I know that Conrado might have some questions for us, I just want to very quickly invite you, if you have any questions for us, please write them down here. Write them in Portuguese, English. I will just ask the Novi team if they can translate the Portuguese ones for us. And I'll make sure to send over our answers as a follow-up, or even if Conrado has the time to take them right now as well. So thank you so much for having us, Conrado. We're waiting for your questions.
Thank you a lot. So much content, so much experiences, and so much provocation. And it's interesting because, and it's what we were experiencing here. Basically, it looks like at the end, for instance, that we were not talking about L&D. We are talking about design thinking and system thinking and curiosity. So, for starter, what do you think is the skills that we need to include in our L&D team?
Oh my God, you start with the tough questions. I will moderate this as well. Danny, go ahead. I think you have some ideas.
Yes. I think the first thing, you can easily come in and bring in design thinking and experience design methods and stuff like that. But I think with any big period of change, you need to kind of rally the troops. So kind of looking at that dreamer and distill mindset and expansive and reductive. And when I look at their mindsets, it's a bit like oil and water. They don't mix. And once you can get your team realizing, actually, now's the time for us to be really expansive and dreamer, and now is the time for us to distill that down and turn that into reality. That's probably the first biggest shift, them two mindsets. And then on top of that, I'd probably say spend time learning about discovery methods or sense making or audience insight. And you can get really playful with that. You know, you can do donut pop-up shops and you give them a donut for how they're feeling right now. You can do, you know, ethnography research. I was working with a giant vacuum cleaner beginning with D. I'll let you decide who that is. And we spent 2 days, and we went to the employee's house at 6 o'clock in the morning. We got ready with them. We had breakfast with the family. We took their route to work, shadowed them all day, went all the way home. And the amount of insight we got, which we just wouldn't have got if we didn't spend that time to do that discovery first and foremost. So I think, yeah, design thinking, service design, experience design are the way.
I would add systems thinking maybe to the mix. And I would just encourage everyone to run like these small experiments where they go in for a certain period of time and they immerse themselves into worlds that they don't usually immerse themselves into different disciplines, architecture, product, anything that comes to mind. I think there are things that we can learn from all the disciplines around us that are adjacent to L&D or that are very, very far away. The only thing that you need is curiosity. Like, just have that curiosity to have and have the patience for the insights and the links to L&D to come to you, because they will come. Just go there and be curious about how others are doing things.
And
Dinny?
Well, if I have to add, I agree with this, like I would say problem solving, because in most of the cases where my team and I was like, oh, that was so innovative, it was simply because we were so stubborn at the beginning and we were just like, no, I don't think that training is going to solve your problem. So to really dig deep into like what is exactly the problem you are trying to solve, and also kind of like push back if they're just like, oh, we know what we need, we just need a training, or we just need like this 1 hour pep talk and then it will be solved. And just be clear, like, okay, and also like position yourself as a partner. So when you push back, it's not because of you are being stubborn because of your expertise. It's like, because I want to help you solve your problem and I need to know that, so that we're not wasting any of our times. You're not wasting my time by creating a false solution. I'm not wasting your time by engaging your employees in something that don't help them in their performance. So just really dig deep into what is the problem that I need to solve in here. And the second one, because I've been living in scale up environments, agility, I would say. I've now gone through like all kinds of roller coaster where I have to know, okay, do I have to be the expert or do I have to be an explorer in this room? Do I have to focus on learning outcomes or do I have to focus on business outcomes? And at the beginning, I always thought that there is like a right solution. Like there is, oh, of course we have to focus on this. And like, do we have to be risky or do we have to maintain the stability that the company needs? And in most cases, you will hear, oh, you need to be innovative. You need to be the expert. You need to be this. But what I've learned so far, it's your context, that your understanding of your context will actually define your success in that organization. And that's, if we're talking about AI, that's exactly how you're not going to be replaced by AI, by putting all this knowledge into your specific context and actually solve their problem. So I will have those two: problem solving and agility.
Finally, AI. I was expecting AI as part of the answers. In Brazil, we have to pay a fine if you don't mention AI in a learning conference. So I'm glad that you save us some money. But what's your view on that? Any one of you, are you already using, or you're betting on a real and interesting case? Danny? I see you
Yeah, I
nodding.
guess the way I think about AI is the one thing what will beat high tech will always be high human touch. And, technology is always going to be the enabler. So when I think about how I'm using it right now, when I'm running Discovery or I'm running Audience Insight, so that could be a month to 2 months of me really understanding the problem. I use it to kind of make sense of the insights. So with insights, you can kind of go down, but you want to go vertically and horizontally. And AI is really good at helping you identify patterns what you don't necessarily see. So what would normally take me maybe a couple of weeks to really pull these burning platforms and identifying for the business, now it's a matter of days and really sweating the AI asset and do what it's really good at right now, which is just identifying patterns and helping me crunch and make sense of data.
Anyone would like to add something on top of that?
Yeah, I would add that it's very helpful for research purposes as well, especially like deep research from ChatGPT is quite good. Google also has a similar tool for their AI. So, whenever we're trying to bring new concepts, new ideas into our companies, I would use these tools to see what's the science behind them. I feel like in the past, at least for me, I don't know how you felt about it. You hear these things that L&Ds need to start with learning science and they need to start with science in general. But for me, spending all of that time reading research papers was a nightmare. So just using these tools, first of all, to understand what research is available, and second of all, to distill that research in a way that I understand it with my very little, practitioner knowledge, for me, it's been life-changing for real. And I do think that it will change. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I do think it's going to change L&D in the next couple of years as nothing else has changed it. And I think we need to be aware of that very early on, so that we can also shift the added value that we bring to our organization beyond content creation in different formats. So yeah, that's my sense.
I was the one who brought up AI. But so to me, I have a love-hate relationship, or not love-hate. There are areas where I was an early adopter. I use it a lot to crunch data, to do research, to synthesize things, all of these things, ChatGPT, any of those platform, it's always open on my tab. However, there are areas of my brain that I want to protect from being lazy, from being, oh yeah, there is always like that part of it. I still use pen and paper. I just got this digital notebook for my birthday. So this is great. For this talk today, I sketch of what I want to say. I know the flow and everything, but I know that there are areas of my brain or parts of my humanity that I would like to reserve, just to make it very creative, because I feel like there are things that when I went into deep thought and really spent time to think about how to solve the problem, the solution that I have on that paper is something that will probably take me 2 hours when I'm chatting with ChatGPT, because it's just not getting what I want to do. So that's my stance with AI. There are places where it will really help us as L&D professionals to save our times, to automate things, to just for me personally, I don't like crunching data. So like, take that part of my job. I'll be happy. But there are parts where I enjoy it. I feel like there is a value of bringing my own creativity into it, and I'll reserve that with my analog tools.
Very
it's a
good.
really good point. There was an article that's just been released, and ChatGPT makes a great sparring partner. But there's an article now that's just been released to say actually the likes of ChatGPT and others, Gemini, are actually making us worse at critical thinking now. So going back to that thing of what you just said, Ed, and is like that. There's a nice way to segment that, right? Keep that critical part as well as the creative part, because I think the last thing we want to do is all just be at the mercy of ChatGPT and become really lazy at thinking. That's what makes us human.
Very, very good. Guys, I have actually 12 seconds here, but I have you have 3 words for this questions, or 7 seconds, you choose. And the question is about who inspires you. And we have the 7 seconds goals. Thank you a lot. The 3 of you was just trying to find someone. And it's a question from the chat. Don't blame me.
I'll go Roald Dahl. So the child author. So he's passed away now. He wrote loads of great, like Matilda and the BFG. I like the way he can tap into playfulness, even at an older age. He still managed to tap that inner child and that inner curious child. So yeah, there's mine.
Thank you.
I wrote in the chat, so I'm saved.
Well, I'm going to be philosophical now. It's nature, because I feel like nature has solved a lot of our problems naturally without pushing too much. So sometimes there are learning problems that I solve by looking at how did nature solve this kind of tricky issue, and that's helpful.
And Lavinia, you gotta read what you wrote, because there are people here on the audience that they are not online.
Of course, it's Chaos Pilot. It's this learning design company from Denmark. They're doing amazing things around putting together experience design with learning. And yeah, I would totally recommend people to look into their work.
Very good. 3 of you, thank you a lot. I don't know, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever. But it's 25 here in Brazil, and I'm very pleased to have you all here sharing all your experiences and thoughts. See you. Bye-bye.